so freaking cold.
I don't work.
When you get outside. Okay, I can tell a little bit. It's not a few
I remember.
That's right. I had cash and Tommy just took all my money.
Let me just write. Oh, I already wrote it. I was just saying, just cover it down. Let me see if I have another check.
I did have cash and so I just said,
Oh,
Maureen, we have money for you.
Good.
I think they're coming.
I don't think I can change the check.
I'll have to drop it off.
Unless I do 150 and take your 50.
figure out.
I think that would, I think they accept the check.
That's pretty
Right.
So I wrote 50. I don't know what to think. And then I can cover your 50 and you can do the
Okay.
Okay, I know everybody's just getting settled in.
I think I
This
can.
is the open portion of tonight's board agenda for 15 minutes, where this is the public hearing on our district-wide safety plan. As you may remember from previous years, this is developed by Questar Health and Safety, which takes care of all the pieces and parts that can be public to the public. And certainly there's some things that are shared with other agencies that are not open to the public for student safety. This is a fairly comprehensive document with minimal changes. Every year we update it with new people. I do want to note that this particular one has an old PTSA rep. So when we do the minutes, this is going to have the updated president as part of it. I just can't edit the document from here. Everyone else is the same. This was a new addition after the pandemic that requires us to develop a plan should we have to pivot and quickly go remote again. Let's hope that we don't have to do that again. But we do have some pieces and parts that are in place. Fortunately, as best as ours could work, we would probably revert back to what that was and the pieces that were consistent with that. Then it just talks about who would do what, and we table top these things with our main team. And this is reviewed with our SRO as well. Again, this is posted to our website. These are things, preventative measures that we're required to report on. And then certainly as there's any additions to protocols, procedures, we would read out this. Questar Health and Safety does a really nice job. We're really fortunate. Craig Hansen, who's in charge of the whole program, is a district resident. And Tim Levan is also a district resident, which is our liaison that works directly with the districts. This just goes through things that we do to keep kids safe, like badges, security audits, having that obviously. We run licenses through the Vader system, the Raptor system, I'm sorry, to make sure that there's no sex offenders at the building, cameras, on buses. This keeps it out early detection for violent behavior. Again, if you were to look at any other if you were to look at any other school, very, very similar. They're pretty, I don't want to say boilerplate, but many strategies. These things have been in place for a long time. These plans just require us. This talks about what we would do in the case of an emergency, how we would get a hold of people, and how we communicate internally. Believe it or not, in my time, I did have one hurricane. It was a tornado. It was a tornado during the concert. Were you there for that? That was what we are. God, no way it's coming here. And then it did. Chris Rockwell really. If anything, I would think flood. And everybody that was around after a hurricane. I think that really flooded our basement completely. I think we lost a lot of stuff. Is that the 90s? Early 2000s hurricane?
I think it's the early 2000s.
Jamie had to go. Yeah.
City and air. Perhaps.
I will tell you the last week of school, we had that really weird, really odd weather. our parking lot completely flooded.
Yeah.
The drainage could not handle that, but fortunately it was, obviously did. And our response for that. We have sister schools, as you may have heard, we have Linsenberg drilled with them right here. So we have our sister schools that we work with should have an incident to go to an outside location. And then here's some resources. And protective action. And recovery should be. If you all get a chance to take a look, anybody have any questions, concerns, comments?
No.
So we do have to keep that open until 6:59. So thank you. And then we can go from there.
Just like I said, right,
Which one?
it doesn't matter.
Or, I think so. Since I.
This resolution.
Yes. 7/9/25. Mo, what do you think? Sunshine Fund? Cash? Yeah.
So it's in Danielle.
Maurice.
Gotcha.
Well, actually, while we're just waiting, does anybody from the audience have comments on the safety plan? The other thing we can talk about is, what size brick you wanna get from Maria. There was the two sizes, there was the larger size, I think it was 250. I wanna say the smaller one was 150. So it's,
What do we want to say?
certainly it's up to you, but I was thinking maybe something along the lines of like, in memory of Rob Lewis and Homer, who was her dog, who also passed away.
Oh,
In honor of Maria Lewis. I don't know, something like that. I just thought that would be nice.
so that much. Writing, I think, requires a second.
Yes, we might need the big one. Yeah. But the only other expense that I know of for this upcoming year and this, will be the scholarship, whatever you choose to get for the scholarship. And then the yearbook, yeah, what was that, 125? My suspicion is it might go up to 150, just so you can plan for your future expenses.
That's all
That's unless somebody gets ill or something like that. which
Yeah,
we
we
don't.
need to.
Okay. They usually start asking more in around January for the yearbook money, and then the scholarship will be at the end. But I do want to mention, we are going to have Caleb Doyne. She's going to be approved tonight. She actually was of all my time here. She's the only student that actually reached out that wanted to be a member, a liaison to the board, which I think was great. But there's just been some other students that have been very helpful to the board too. So you can give as many as you want. So I just share that with you. You can do what you want as we get towards that end of the year. Yeah, and then Kevin.
So if we need to put 50, then it's 450,
What's in there now?
$34.
You're probably right. So she said it's $34. I said, what? But we only, it seems like we've only collected like every third year, so it's, it did last for, right. Right. Well, one of the things we're gonna talk about tonight is the capital project update. Certainly HVAC is on. It's hot.
I know, it's
I
over
didn't hear. It's funny how it cycles, cause I called Kevin when I was leaving to go home and change, and I said, the AC's on, right? And he said, yep, it's on until 9 o'clock, and it's just wonky. And it's really humid, so I'm sure it's just trying to keep up with it. It downpoured for a little while today, so.
It's all right.
I thought that would bring humidity, but no. No, when I left work, I felt like I was like walking into like just a shower or something. It's just so gross. Correct. That's my understanding. Was we 110? I think so. Did everybody apply or respond to the Google poll?
Oh, I have your,
If
Do
you
that
could,
right now.
if
I get any days, no, you won't have it.
you're not gonna have internet.
I think it's Wi-Fi.
Within 24 hours, and that way I can just try to set something up and get everybody's schedule organized. Yep. Yep. What's that?
Board retreat.
The board retreat? I was in.
Had it.
Ridiculous, but yet it was sunlight till 10 o'clock at night. And they don't get,
Really?
yeah, like 10 o'clock at night. It's still daylight, and the sun comes up at 5. And I'm like, so I said to our poor guys, you guys don't get more weather, you get more daylight, so something.
It's like a waste.
That's exactly, yeah, exactly. So, you know, you literally are down for winter cold space, right?
See it, close to it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys make a group.
Yeah, she was. Her second.
We're up. Say home to this. Was it?
It's slowly. Working on
You just 7 o'clock. More in support for. Mo, can you come up here for just a second?
No, it's not. It's not.
You just have to briefly call the meeting to order, and then you're in charge until they pick president and vice president. Jeez, are you-
You big deal.
She's interested.
So it's like,
I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Jeff Roddy.
not yet. Yeah.
Oh. All right, we have to do the oath of office for Danielle, Jenna, and Dina. If you three would stand, please. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear. I swear to uphold the Constitution. And the bylaws of New York State. And the Board of Education for the Brunswick Central School District. Central School District. Congratulations. And then, this is the next piece before we turn over the meeting. So, I'll read that resolution.
Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the election of the following officers for the 24-25 school year.
Is there a nomination for president? Is there a
Second.
Oh, we gotta write this down. I'm sorry. Yeah. And Tammy. Any other nominees?
Nominate for you.
Is there a second? This is good. For president? Or vice president?
Oh, vice president. Oh, I'm sorry, vice president. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we were vice president. Sorry. My bad. You're like, this is new.
I didn't
Sorry.
say.
Okay.
My bad.
My heart rate, no. My heart rate is high.
You're all looking
All
at
right.
me.
Before we vote, I'm happy to serve again this year. I do want to say that I probably won't run next year. So if anybody else thinks they would like to do a year, I'm happy to step
All in favor of Jack Ratty for president?
Sorry. You do all your toes.
I literally, my heart just went through my chest. I didn't know what to do.
Sorry.
Okay. Now, Danielle nominated Leah, and there was, and Jenna was the second. Any other nominations?
All in
Okay.
favor?
nominate Joe.
No, it
I'm getting choked up. All in favor? All right, thank you. You're welcome. All right.
I was just looking at the thing. That's wrong.
Okay. Board member appointments. I did share what we've done in previous years, for these items. Certainly, these are the current committees and board committees. These are pretty much in general the meetings, and some years some are busier than others. I would say just for your own planning and purposes, a couple things to keep in mind. Curriculum and assessment, there's a lot of next standard generation curriculum that are coming from New York State. There'll be a lot of conversation about that. I also think that, I know Jack feels pretty passionately about in this business meeting, but I do think we've talked about our advocacy as a collective group. I think that's a really important thing not to just overlook. I think it's really important to have your voice heard. That's one of the reasons that we have David Little coming in September, because as this Rockefeller study comes out, I think smaller districts are really gonna have to step up and be heard. Otherwise, we're gonna have some challenges. So our main board committees are audit and finance, facilities, and policy. Would anyone like to step up?
I guess maybe it's easier to say, does anybody want to change? I know there was one email that somebody wanted to change one of their assignments. Oh,
I want to do
was it
facilities.
Kevin?
You wanna do facilities? I thought you were on facilities too.
I want to stay with facilities.
Okay, so let's start with audit and finance. Who? We should minimally have 2, possibly 3, not more than that, otherwise that becomes a forum and that's a meeting, so we just have to.
I think it was Val
I don't mind staying.
I don't know. Anybody else for audit and finance? Okay, and for facilities, Danielle.
I-
Last year.
You're on it.
I think 3 was.
Tammy and Ryan. Okay. How about policy? I know Kevin wished to remain with that. Anyone else want an assignment? Something? Okay.
I'll take one if you, whatever, is there,
What's your preference?
whatever you need.
Art, arts. Sure, I guess, sure. Perfect. All right. How about curriculum and assessment? We don't meet as often as we used to, correct? anyone else want to join? Curriculum assessment? Great. And the board, I love the wellness committee functional. It's really a heavy lift. We struggle both like internally with our own people getting it going. It's been tough. Wellness committee? As many people as you want on that. Jenna, Danielle, you see over here? Yeah, okay. Great. Thank you. Ryan, you wanna continue on with PTSA or would you like to comment on this? Okay. Legislative liaison. Jack, I think you might have done that. Anyone want to be a second to Jack for that? CAPSPA. I'm gonna put you down for it.
That's the education.
That's right.
If there was one. I'm gonna put Ryan down.
Alright,
You're the
I'll
only
back up
member.
with Ryan. We're gonna make this happen.
I'll do what we have to, but
If you could, I mean, in my opinion, I think I've told a couple of you privately, I think it needs some, I don't say retirees, but somebody that really can give like a lot of time and energy. I think that would be a really great way to get that. I would go before when I first came on board. I'm looking at Eric Olson, who probably remembers it from a long time ago. It was really robust, but those people, like their kids aged out and then they went to college and then they kind of went away. And then there was really, it didn't go to anyone else. There really wasn't an interest in that. But all right,
How much time does it require? Just curious.
it wasn't really a lot. I want to say we met maybe 4 times a year at like 7:30 in the morning. It wasn't a heavy lift, but it was hard to get a diverse group of people together. That was the big challenge, which is probably not a big surprise there, but had a couple of fundraisers. Yeah, it was one year. Yeah, they would, people would put donations to it. When it really started to fracture, some people had some different ideas about how to raise money, and then everybody just said, "I don't want to do that," and then just kind of fell by the wayside. Is my recollection. Athletic committee liaison. This is ad hoc, so it's an as needed. Do you want to do that since you do that? You get the booster club reports and play, right? Probably no, not anymore. Anybody want to be a backup to Tammy? Okay. Board appointments. No changes here. Do you need a motion?
Yes. Yeah.
All in favor? Other board appointments, again, no major changes here. This is just the required things that we're supposed to do. There are changes in our Title IX compliance. One of our newer teachers has some background in Title IX, so she stepped up for that role. She's got some training. And everything else I can do is the same. If you want to stick with Times Union as your legal newspaper, there's a lot of choices. Okay. You need to watch it.
And Danielle, all in favor?
Special education appointments, also not a lot of changes here, and these can be added over time as well. You'll notice that is our alternate chairperson for 504 for preschool and for regular ed school. We did add our new school psychologist to that list. She can also chair meetings as well. But just a little
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, who's the first?
Jenna, Tammy.
Okay, our annual memberships. NISBA, CAPSPA. I don't believe they've been actually collecting anything, but once you remember, if they do become functional, then you can take care of that. We are members of the Rensselaer County Chamber of Commerce, the Rural Schools Association, and CASA, which is Capital Area Association. We use a lot.
So I need a motion for that.
Just a,
Go ahead.
I just had a question. Is there anything else that we should be considering?
I can look into it. I've never really looked at other schools. I know those are the real big ones. Some schools in other areas of the state have a county-wide like big time on Long Island, central New York. And there was some talk about Rensselaer County superintendents getting, or not, sorry, board members getting together, just to have formal kind of what's going on in your school, what's going on in your school, just to have that, but nothing that I know of yet, but I can look into it.
When Questar does do that, it's not a membership.
Correct, that's part of our, Yep.
Workshop.
that's probably why it never picked up around here.
Okay, yeah, so we need a motion for that. Dina, yeah, all in favor? Motion carries.
No changes here, this just allows me to do things like certify payroll and do budget transfers, etc. And there's a lot of checks and balances that are associated with this.
So I need a motion for that. Tammy, Dina, all in favor? Motion carries.
3.9 is our designation of depositories. We use two major places, M&T Bank, which we do our day-to-day banking, and then NICLAS, which we do our investment banking. They help us find the greatest rate to make money on our reserves.
Leah, Tammy, all in favor? Motion carries.
Our school attorneys, it's Honeywell, that's who we meet with quite often. Infrequently, we use bond counsel. They help us with the resolutions and things we need to do to bond our money. And then as needed, we use Honeywell for special education counsel.
Motion for that. Dina, Ryan, all in favor? Motion carries.
3.11 is our fiscal advisors. We use Bernie Donegan. They help us with short and long-term funding, and I'm quite pleased with that service.
Motion for that. Tammy, Danielle, all in favor? Motion carries.
3.12 is the bonding of our employees. These are the people that handle funds, and they're bonded should there be an incident or an accident related to that.
Motion for that. Leah, Ryan, all in favor? Motion carries.
Miscellaneous rates are, not really used them quite a bit. Probably the most important thing is going to be the mileage, which could change at any point. But we currently subscribe to the current IRS rate, which is 0.67 a mile.
Motion for that. Danielle, Al, all in favor? Motion carries.
Substitute rates. We did make some adjustments mid-year last year, and then we've certainly made some adjustments minor, like 5 cents here, 5 cents there for some custodians. But this is where we land. And again, we try to find the balance between being fiscally responsible and being able to get people to come to work. And some of these positions are actually quite challenging. Surprisingly, custodian. That used to be a job everybody would want to have, and you'd wait on a list for the longest time, and not anymore. It's time to change. I know we're not the only one. If you were going to OLS, you can see several schools looking for custodians and custodial workers.
Motion, Leah, Tammy, all in favor? Motion carries.
Previously sent to you was our board policy and our code of ethics. So it's just a responsibility of every board member to review each and every year, so we put that on the reorganization meeting.
Motion put that on the table. Ryan, Dina, all in favor? Motion carries.
And likewise, the following parental involvement, code of conduct, investments, purchasing, and links to those policies, their annual policies.
Leah, Tammy, all in favor? Motion carries. So that brings us to 4.1, approval of the minutes. Danielle, Ryan, all in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to our student liaison appointment. Kayla?
Yeah, student liaisons aren't required to come during the summer, but I'll certainly reach out to her. Kayla's a senior, she's a great kid. And as I mentioned before the meeting, she's one of the only students in many years that actually wrote to me and asked to be, and was selected to be a part of this.
All in favor? Motion carries. And that brings us to the district clerk, secretary of the board appointment for Maureen. Motion to put that on the table. Valerie, Jenna, all in favor? Motion carries. And that brings us to superintendent's update.
Yes, it's a new year, and it's amazing. This year really ended late, so there really wasn't a lot of time between ending of one year and the quick start of the next year. I do have some some information that I'd like to share with you, and we'll certainly be incorporating this into some of the communication that goes out to families once we verify some of these numbers. But I got this from Questar today. As you know, we invest a lot of funds, well-spent funds, I might add, into our CTE programs. And for our just graduated seniors, the class of 2024, this is the overall results, which means they leave with the certificate that enables them to be a functioning employee in their particular field, whether it's IT, plumbing, car, hair, criminal justice, the myriad. The only reason that it's not a perfect 100 is one of our students failed the written portion of his practical, which kind of had a trickle down effect for them. But I'm quite pleased. So of those kids, we had a 95% passing rate. So when you're looking at our investment in that, I think it's got really great outcomes. Questar is working hard with our component districts, so us, to try to find out where the kids end up going. So for example, like if they went and got a hairstylist license, did they go, is that their chosen career, or was it just something that they were doing during high school? I think some of them have a cleaner nexus. So for example, I know a lot of kids in criminal justice end up finding their way into corrections, probation, etc. I know IT, same thing, and car, like mechanics and auto body. With some of the CNAs, sometimes they take different paths and different things, but we're going to get some clear numbers about where our kids actually went. We did have a very high number of students do HVAC this year, and I know that they were offered some pretty high-paying internships, so I would only imagine that would translate to careers, which is great. With regards to the class of 2024, we had 93 seniors. Of those 93 seniors, 33% of them received a Regents with Advanced designation. Of those 93 seniors, 13% of them received a Regents with Advanced designation with honors. Of them, 24% received a CTE endorsement. So some of these kids, plus some of the kids that you saw at the previous board meeting, that did some work-based learning to earn a part of their credentialing. Of the 93 seniors, 20 of them, which means 22%, were in the National Honor Society. 9% of them were in the National Technical Honor Society through Questar and BOCES, which I think is wonderful. So they achieved in their program. 3 of them, 3%, were in the Business Honor Society, which is new for us this year. 12% of them were honor grads. 12% of them received Service to School Award. 4% of them received a Character Ed Award, and 54% of them were student athletes. So I think it was a really great group of kids that were highly involved, and those numbers are great. We'll start working through some Regent scores and AP scores with a little bit of time, but I wanted to provide you that information now.
Is that something that we can have somewhere on our social media or something?
Absolutely.
It was a good.
Yep, I'm gonna start with this. I wanted you guys to see it first, so that'll be a post tomorrow. And then as I verify those numbers, just to make sure that they're perfect and there's not a kid somewhere hanging out in the sky, we'll start to post those. And then we'll also use them in our budget newsletter. Those are the numbers I think our community really likes to see. So absolutely. We talked a little bit about this on email, but one thing I just wanted to put in the minutes and just put on everybody's radar is the possible implications of the community eligibility provision. As you know, all of our kids get free and reduced breakfast, free breakfast and lunch, because the eligibility went from 40% poverty down to 25. So that was great. Everybody's eating. Our numbers are through the roof, which is wonderful, which means a lot of kids are eating. And I do have some data on that as well. The problem with that is people are now not filling out free and reduced lunch applications, which has implications for some other forms of funding. So we're just gonna have to think about some messaging to make sure that people know, like, yes, just because you get free lunch, it is critically important that you do all those other things. For example, FAFSA or, college applications are free. AP, reduced school, reduced admission into those exams and things like that. So we'll be doing some messaging. I just wanted to use this as an outlet to put that on the record too, should people be reading the board minutes. Hiring, I don't wanna jinx anything, so I'm not going to say too much. But this is the time where people start stealing from each other in terms of employees, particularly with the high needs employees. We're very fortunate tonight. We have a brand new physics teacher. As you know, Mr. Marshall, who was our previous physics teacher, moved down to North Carolina. I thought, oh boy, I'm going to be teaching physics again. And she came out and had a wonderful interview, so glad to be welcome. She knew, right? Shinobu, I'm gonna get this, I promise you. So we're glad to welcome her. She's an experienced physics teacher that's coming closer to home, and I think Tamarik's very lucky to be able to find a physics teacher of her caliber who'll be teaching college physics and Regents physics for us, and also some science electives. Oh, I think we have teacher assistant or two to hire that we're in the process of hiring for some special education needs, and hopefully, I want to say it, hopefully, we'll just leave it there. I wanted to also give a construction update. People often wonder what the heck we do over the summer, but it's actually very, very busy for many of the administrators. One of the things that I've been working on is some construction things. So before I mentioned to you that we're going to do the project in phases, this project is actually going to be in 3 phases: phase 1, phase 1A, and phase 2. Phase 1A was the part that was cut out to work on the stadium field, just that piece. I'm going to work on that. Very, very little else besides that, and that's going to go to state ed immediately. So hopefully that can get approved and we can begin working on it this time next year. That is our hope. Right now, the wait time at state ed just to even have them pick up your application is 24 to 26 weeks, and it gets longer every single time. So our architects are doing a really nice job of expediting that, pulling in favors and that kind of stuff, and working on the design pieces and parts, but it's still a little bit of a luck of the draw, to be very, very candid with you. If it doesn't get done, if they don't approve it in time, the construction would just be punted until the next year, so 2026. Phase 1, not 1A, phase 1 will include our elementary roof, the elementary school generator, the toilet rooms in the middle school, high school, the foundation at the bus garage, boilers, updates to lighting to turn it into LED, some roof fans, and some extra heat to the 6th and 7th grade wing. So just some spotty things here and there. And then phase 2, which is the bigger portion of the project, which is actually where a lot of the money is, will be after that. That'll be a second submission after part 1 and part 1A, and that'll be the elementary school mechanical doing, so all heat pumps, water pumps, things like that. The secondary entrance, all the security features that are involved in the secondary entrance, the ramps, the stairs, etc. Sanitary piping, which is everything that comes from the toilet and goes into our septic system or goes to the wastewater treatment plant. Secondary heating systems, parking lot at the bus garage, which is going to be extensive. That's a lot of work that's associated with that. So we don't have enough time to do it in the first round, so we're gonna have to wait till 2026 to do that. Upgraded HVAC, plumbing, and then the wastewater treatment plant. So those are the phases that they're going in.
When is the fire alarm system?
That should be part of phase 2. Phase 2, unless something changes. I will also mention there's a lot of things going on right now. The people that are working on the site work are looking for geotech services to come in and get bids. So I think we've gotten at least 2 proposals. They'll vet them, they'll bring them, and eventually they'll come to the board once we get the expert's opinion on what would be the best geotech service to go with. And that's just due to the nature of our proximity to wetland and the swamp and the stream that comes through our property. The other thing just want to put on your radar is not this $100,000 project that you're voting on in tonight's agenda, but our next $100,000 project we're thinking about is replacing the sign out front. It's getting towards end of life, and I don't want it to be at end of life when it dies, and then we're stuck trying to find how to do that. It's likely not going to cost $100,000 by any stretch, so we'll put some other little things here and there, but that would be the main foundation. But when you drive by, you can start to see some of the bulbs are out that can't be replaced. So we think it's got a little bit more usable time to it, but we should be able to do that if all goes well this time next year, and they should be able to order that and get that done. The signs now are very different than the signs when we first purchased that. That one was bottom barrel because nobody in Brunswick had one. We were a little cautious about putting up an electronic sign. Now there's some choices. So as we start to look at that, hopefully I'll bring you some things and you can see what we think best represents our school district for that. And cell phones. Next month, I'd like to have a conversation either before the meeting, after the meeting, and certainly we'll partner with PSA, just to talk about the impact of cell phones. I've sent the Board of Education some information, some studies that are coming out now about the overall impact to school culture and environment and then the mental health of kids. I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. I don't think that we should necessarily jump into anything. Some schools do that, and I don't know if that's necessarily wise because you got to make sure that our expectations meet the community expectations, and it's a really thoughtful process, but I think you're gonna start to see some schools, I know you're gonna start to see some schools really going with policies and those, little baggies that the kids lock them up. Actually, I was very surprised to hear Troy Middle School, and just the middle school room is gonna be implementing that for this upcoming year.
Do we have a policy?
Yes, we have, I don't have it right in front of me. We do have policy, not about like taking the phones away from kids, but about usage of that. And again, I don't know that those couches necessarily are the answer to everything, but I think it's worth exploring. And I do want to put some more information into parents' hands. There's even just a lot of research about young kids and tablets and how that impacts their ability to stay focused and handle boredom and cope and things like that. So I think that's part of our obligation to share that information, as long as it's good information. So I just kind of, I wanted to put that on your radar. And I think that's it for me. Mrs. Honorado, are you ready?
I'll be fairly brief. Our ESY, Extended School Year Special Education Programs, and some of our summer scholars, enrichment, social emotional learning programs started this week. I'd like to thank the PTSA for providing some supplemental funding that allowed us to provide those programs, the summer scholars and some summer tutoring, more at the scale that we did last year. Whereas in June, the board approved all of the programs that we provided last year, but some had to be reduced in days and hours to fit the budget that we had for remaining COVID funds. But thanks to some supplemental funding from the PTSA, we were able to provide it at the same scale that we did last year. So that captured a lot more students, I think. And everyone's really excited to have those programs back in full force. We're in scheduling and planning mode, of course, over the summer. To piggyback on what Dr. Maloney shared, we're in some talks too about maybe some elementary focused topics in addition to kind of that global screen time, personal electronic device, cell phone topic that impacts kids pre-K through 12. Also maybe some elementary topics that I'd like to explore with some parents where we could get some information sessions going in that capacity. And also in terms of planning ahead for next year, we're starting to dig into some of our end of year building data. And just today I was looking into some of our local building level chronic absenteeism data. That's very encouraging from what I was seeing today in comparison to last year. So it looks like we're moving in the right direction. And if my calculations are correct, we're shifting back more to pre-pandemic, even better rates. So more to come on that.
If I could just add to what Ms. Honorado said, you may remember we partnered with Rensselaer County, the Start Center, and April Parks to have a shared family intervention counselor. And attendance was one of their main focus. They did a variety of different things for us, but that was a huge help because they could spend the time and go out and work with families and really get to the root of what was causing the interruption to the child being able to attend school. And sometimes it was transportation, could they close, could they myriad of different things, and they were able to do that. Last year we paid cash for it. This year we're running it through a BOCES COSAR, so we can get some feedback on it. But boy, that has been money really well spent. I think the administrators would agree with me on that.
Absolutely. You know, it tends to service a lot of our special education identified students as well. You know, still working very hard over the summer to follow up on some of our student needs that, you know, just have some loose ends to tie up. But our students are off to summer programming and attendance is going really well. Some of our, I would say 2 of our special education students receiving programming over the summer were pretty disengaged this spring. So I was just happy to hear that day 1, we've gone to camp and we're doing well. We are running 2 programs locally, K2 and 3-5. So thank you to Kelly for opening up the building. It was a really nice atmosphere today, having the summer scholars in the building. It's a very different feel when you have that many other teachers and students over the summer versus just our 2 ghost town classrooms. So I think the students in our special classes who were here yesterday and today really felt that as well. We're in the thick of scheduling as well. We're hoping to present you also with a new special education plan that we feel should be developed, hopefully presenting that either by the end of summer or in the fall. Just to touch on the appointment, Jennifer Homewood, the school psychologist that Dr. Maloney focused on. This was a bit of an out of the box search. If you remember, a social worker resigned and was moving on to more clinician roles. And we opened this position up to both social workers and school psychologists, not really knowing what the candidate pool looked like. There are so many number of both of these positions posted on OLA, so it's hard to believe we would even find one person, but we did. There were a few candidates that were seasoned to bring in, and as you can see from Jennifer I apologize. The committee selection, it really stands out for her because of the role she plays as a school psychologist, being able to just walk in the door and hit the ground running when it comes to student crises, when it comes to evaluations, which, our two school psychologists that we have currently have really been overwhelmed by, given the increased need in referrals. And then, of course, her extensive experience with chairing meetings in and of itself, both 504s and IEPs. She comes with 20 years of experience from Cambridge, and she lives in the district. So I think we landed a good one there. Today, we started the process for filling our teaching assistant positions, which thank you to Mrs. Honorado for attending them as well. We landed on hopefully 2 candidates that we'll be sending along to Dr. Maloney. And I want to say that these 2 candidates stood out exceptionally well because of their long-standing experience and desire to work with not just students with special needs, but students with high needs. And their desire to remain in a role similar to that. Just coming from my perspective, it just warms your heart that those instructional people are still out there, and they're very happy to be here with us. And then one other appointment that you have is another out of the box thinking. Nick Terracone is coming back. He left us for a 1-year leave of absence. He is returning to his previous role as teaching assistant, however, only in a 0.4 capacity because his other 0.6 capacity will be kind of unique in that he will be reverse co-teaching in a special class setting, the middle school and the high school programs that we've evolved from life skills into our content programming. Nick satisfies 2 of the content areas for each of those classes, making all 4 of our content areas compliant with certifications, which is virtually impossible to find. I think I mentioned the new cert requirement for 7 through 12 would be special educator having to have all 4 certifications in each content area, and it's just not possible. So to have this dynamic role between Nick and both of the special educators it's going to be good, powerful. So thank you for those roles.
Yeah, if I could just add to that last piece, it is unusual, but we are required to try to find a content specialist to also teach with a special education degree. Those are very, very hard to find. So that's the combo. So he'll bring content specialty to the room, and the special educator will be there to deliver special education services. One other piece with summer scholars, I do want to echo the sentiment as a thank you to the PTSA. They provided a large donation to enable us to have a robust program. But I do want to put it on your radar. The funding that we were able to contribute was coming from the COVID grants that is expired. So if this is something that the board and the community wish to desire to continue on, that would be something that we would have to be including into the next year's budget. We certainly have the information from this year to be able to be planful about it, but I just want to put that on your radar. I don't want to forget about it when we get to March.
Kelly,
We have it. I know PTSA gave us 6,700 because that's on our board agenda tonight.
With that funding, and don't quote me on the exact number, but I want to say it's in the ballpark of $18,000.
and that is inclusive of the current summer scholars programming, in addition to tutoring. If you think about 7 or 8 sessions
or 7 or 8 tutors that provide sessions for a total of like 15 hours over the summer, just to kind of get
Thank you.
That brings us to updates. Anyone have anything they want to share? That brings us to special ed. So a motion to do that on consent 9.1 through 9.3. Oh, I'm sorry. So let's do the C-Corps resolution for the sump pumps. Leah, Danielle, all in favor? Motion carries. So that brings us to 9.1 to 9.3, the special ed. Motion put that on the table. Danielle, Nina, all in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to policy. We want to have conversations about this.
So could I ask, 2 things? First of all, the 10.1 is just a discussion, it's the first reading, so what I think would be a really great idea, unless you want me to go in a different direction, just kind of have some open conversation today, take down some questions, ideas, thoughts, and then we can punt it to either the policy committee or talk about it again at the second reading. That's why you have multiple versions. 10.2 is transportation for students in foster care. This is something that we already do, but I just need to provide a policy on it. I don't think you need to have tremendous amount of discussion on it because it's pretty straightforward. So I would ask that you consider voting on 10.2. That way I can put that in our policy manual and then we have a conversation about 10.2.
Okay, so let's do a motion to put 10.1 on the table. Danielle, Dina, we're going to have some discussion on that.
Do you want to do it now or do you want to do it at the end? It's really up to you.
I thought we were doing now. So,
Just ask it. Let me just get something to write up.
Yeah.
Who wants to start?
I'll start with an easy one, which
Okay.
is there any research out there on the effectiveness of these policies and what works and what doesn't work? Because I think Tammy, Danielle, I think all of our comments were around the same thing of, taking away something from students that is obviously important to them, doing it in these interim marking periods as opposed to the final marking period, just trying to figure out, is it effective and is it also equitable? So if a student is involved in athletics, do they get chess club taken advantage of that since using that as
How do you say that?
Or
Somebody
Much
does
better,
run, somebody
yes.
does run chess. I don't have that.
Evening club.
Right, whatever it is.
Well, I honestly think that we need to protect ourselves that whether or not a student is involved in any club, we need to have a policy.
So if you read through that, this does include extracurricular activities.
No, no, completely doesn't do anything, an extracurricular banner in the school whatsoever.
Can you say it to me?
So like if you have a
Sorry.
student, like every student, regardless of if you're an athlete or not, every child is
Looked at the same.
looked at the same and being held to the same standard and given the same opportunity, and a parent is being communicated to the same, and they're being treated the same throughout the whole process. Because if I have a
honestly-
student who doesn't play sports and you have a student that is a star football player, now your student's failing and my student's failing, but how come now your student is getting all this extra attention for not
Oh, I see.
passing
I
and
understand what you're
mine
saying.
is not getting the same attention? Do you know what I'm
We
saying?
need a policy for everyone.
So definitely not arguing, but those policies, what I think you're trying to put in place would be additional positions. So that'd be something that we really would have to work through. Because right now we don't have, what I'm hearing correctly is like an after-school person that was available to everyone.
I mean, I don't speak for Danielle, but I think it's just more making sure it's equivalent. So I think Tammy might have said maybe you don't need a policy, in which case fend for themselves.
Yeah.
But so I think it's just a matter of making sure whatever that is
Okay.
is equitable across the whole gamut of
Or
students.
to say like in the policy, say,
teacher will provide a checklist of the missing assignments.
Oh, I understand.
Well, that's
Gotcha.
something that's simple and doesn't require an additional position, that providing a checklist of missing assignments should be across the board for everybody, not just the athlete or the chess player or the kid who doesn't participate in anything. And we just had this conversation a few seconds ago about attendance and how great it is that we've been working on that and getting all these kids back in. And I do think there are students who their extracurricular activity is a driving force for them to attend school.
Sure.
And so we have to look at the balance between their motivating factor to be here and be educated may not be their education, it might be something else, and using that as punishment, for lack of a better word. And just kind of balancing all of that.
So I have a question, and I won't put you on the spot, because probably, but do you have some idea of how many of our students participate in some sort of extracurricular activity?
I don't
Whether it
have
be
it on the
sports-
spot, but I can get that for next time. That's
Okay,
no,
because
that's
I
no
think
problem.
that's important too.
It said 55% of the seniors were
Correct.
just athletes.
Just athletes alone, so I'm
Yep.
thinking we're probably, again, guessing 80%
I
participate
can
in
work with Mr. Rizzo on
something.
that. That's
But
no
if we
problem.
should, I think that, because I think we need to see, what impact it would have on what number of students. And if we, and in my estimation, the higher that number, the more easily we can make it equitable. I mean, I think really what we're doing is if it's, say, whatever percentage, 5%, 10%, who don't participate in something, then we're, that's obviously where we have to tweak. But if we can go across the board, any extracurricular activity, pretty much no brainer to me, because it's then, the higher that number, the easier it will be.
Is there
So-
some support team? Yes. The counselors and administrators.
So often in those student support teams, every quarter, the DF notices are going.
What is the deal?
D or F grade.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know.
And all the students that have B's and F's in that particular class, and then what's being done is safety net to help them. There's something along those
We do.
lines.
We have them in both buildings.
So I think that percentage number, and I also think if I'm still not clear, and maybe it's me, but I'm just not clear on what our policies are or what, I mean, I know you kind of alluded to, well, this is how it's been done and so forth, but
Policies with regard to this?
just
Okay.
clear, so if someone is a member of whatever other club, are there any consequences? Is there
Yes.
anything? There are.
Yep. So if
Okay.
you're a member of an extracurricular activity, this too shall apply. Where it gets a little wonky is band and chorus, because those are classes too. So that's just like kind of a gray, weird area, because they do things as an extension of their day, is kind of a little bit above. Yeah, we don't have a marching band, but like that would be an extension, for example.
But they do it outside of a regular schedule though, correct?
Yeah.
So it is
Some of them,
volunteer.
yeah.
I
Some of
guess
them.
my struggle is, I want to, if, when you're implementing a policy, I want it to be where, I would love for it to be where these kids are getting, like, the help, a solid foundation and help that is needed. Like I said, whether it's, the tutoring after school, and if it means we're hiring extra people, I don't know what it looks like, but, whether it's the mandatory tutoring after school during their lunch or study hall or that resource room or whatever, but solid program in place that is providing a structured setting for them. Not so much that we're taking something away, but that we're providing the help. Let them play their sports. Let them have their extracurricular. Let them have that safe place to go to. But also provide them the educational tools they need to be successful.
The way I think of it, Danielle, is very similar to your thinking too. This, in my mind, one of my biggest worries is dropout, right? So one of the things that I just want to make sure is that there's some stopgaps in place so that the kid doesn't go completely rogue, because there's no accountability at all, right? So we want to just find little mediary steps so that there's somebody pumping the brakes before it gets completely like a landslide and you're losing them. But you don't want it to be so tight is so prohibited that someone that's already struggling can't find the one thing that makes a difference. Does that make sense?
Right, and then what's that communication checklist with and some teachers, and it might be, I don't know, but what is that communication checklist, if we can get that back from the committee, like, is it in the parent portal, like the grades in the parent portal? Is that being utilized where you can go in and it shows homework assignments are missing, their grades are in there? Is there,
That's a good point, because, and I said that in the email, but do we have a policy, or is there something in there for teachers that they have to have grades posted by a certain time? Because I know,
There's internal procedures on the word policy is,
or rule, whatever.
yeah, I think there's expected. I mean, I can give a little bit more
Expectations
clarity.
are completely different, because it's expected, but it's not required. Because when I go on to Zelia's and even Cameron's, I wouldn't know until the market period. Or when interims came out, and I'm like, wait, what? Why is all of this
I think you
missing
had
or
brought that
whatever?
up, that
So,
there's not like a warning time, it's like,
Hey,
hey,
exactly.
here's the mid-marking
right,
period,
and
or
we're taking
you're
it
on,
away.
Do something.
right, like you're on academic probation, where it's like, there's not that warning period necessarily. And I agree, it's
Right.
difficult to keep up with where are you at grade wise, as a
They're just not
parent,
all-
when there's
Right.
some teachers, it's 24 hours later after an assignment is handed in, there's a grade posted, and you can say, okay, keep up with where your kid is. And other ones, it's like marking period ends on Friday, and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Grade posted, grade posted, grade posted, grade posted, and you had no idea that your kid was getting grades that maybe weren't satisfactory to this parent.
So it's kind of two different things to me, like, that every student should have that, and I think when we're talking about, athletics or extracurricular, I think we're weaving that. I think every student I think every parent should have access to that information, and there should be some
You need a
policy, procedure in place, expectation, deadline, whatever it may be, because I think any parent could be caught off guard, whether it's a parent of an athlete or not.
Right.
And if it's too late, it's too late regardless. So I think that's one piece. And then the other piece is, I firmly believe we're here to educate children first and foremost. And I do agree with all the other roles we play in students' lives, but those activities to me are a privilege. And they should be, there should be some expectation of students. And I think they should be used as more or less a reward or a motivation to be educated, so not take it necessarily, I'm not advocating to take it away or to, come down with the gavel, but we should be using that as motivation to, you have to keep your grades up because that's the most important thing. And as a result, you get to do this, and this, and I think we're kind of talking about two different things. And I think a lot of it may just be presentation. And the communication piece of it.
I think tying the academic eligibility policy is like the first mistake. Just talk about what support expectations that you're going to provide,
right.
And then you get to that point later on, where it's like, all right, we're going to start with all the support. These are the things we're going to give you, as a student, as a parent.
Because I will tell you, when those students, if they become a college athlete, they're going to have a rude awakening because they are held to, a whole different
Granted, they might
plethora
get private tutors or whatever,
whatever
but
it may be, but it's still up to them to get out of bed and get to that private tutor at 7 a.m., Yeah.
If I
So-
could just offer, I think, first of all, this is really great. This is really what the function of governance is to talk about the community expectations and how it applies to kids and things like that. So we'll wait until we get it right to be able to implement it. But I do want to mention a couple things, and then I'll work with Ken just to give you a little bit more of a broader picture, because I didn't sit in on those meetings. But I will share a couple things. Every single school in the Western League, which is our athletic league, has a policy of some sort. Some are really, really tight. Some are liberal. It's very much like any other thing, it's a kind of whole thing. This was based on shared decision making, and it was opened up to everyone. So anyone that wanted to be a part of that policy, so it wasn't handpicked, you and you, so it was opened up to everybody. I think that's important, because everybody that felt passionately about it could be a part of that conversation. And that's basically it. So what I'll do is I will work with Mr. Rizzo, but just take the time to read through that before. I will tell you, it's definitely definitely more student friendly now than it's been in the past. And then the current one, even before this, was even more student friendly than it's been. So the timelines have definitely been cut down so that it's not exclusive, rather kind of forcing the hand of the child, kind of like, all right, let's get that motivation up and going again, which is what we talked about. So I'll have that as a standing agenda item for next meeting.
Just a thought, because you brought up a good point about if they go to play college. Do we have maybe a secondary eligibility, if we're gonna have a policy, do we have a secondary policy and a high school policy? Because the kids in the middle school are younger, they're just starting to navigate their way, some of them, have, don't know how to
Like, is there a
advocate for
difference
themselves.
between middle school and high school?
Yeah, should there be a difference between the policies? And I get that we do have middle schoolers that play at the varsity level, but I'm just talking about the mentality and their capacity to really understand all of this, because I think that they're just very young. They don't get, like they may just be starting to come into the sport, and I just don't want to see them not continue because they became academically ineligible and they're like, oh, forget
Yeah. I do know, I don't have an exact answer to you, because I think right now the policy is 7 through 12. But the team structure that we have at the middle school provides an additional level of support that isn't found in the high school, in terms of the team leader being the main communicator with the families, and they have team meeting every day where they talk about the kids, who's doing what, that kind of thing. So I'll get some clarification in so I can have a more comprehensive presentation to you, and also with research as well.
I would just add, I think why we brought up the separate issue of the grade timeline being posted for parents to follow along is just the lack of a structure of a check-in policy or check-in schedule on that policy. That it was kind of like midway.
Are you referring to this?
Yes,
Okay.
like that it was at the interims.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Yes or no, and then the final grade, yes or no. That there wasn't really a structure of maybe like a warning period or a check-in. That would be something that I would maybe like to see in there as just a guideline of maybe a little bit more guidance of not just like, hey, it's Thursday and Friday's interims and you're academically ineligible. And I'm not in any way suggesting that teachers don't communicate with their students, that they're missing assignments or that they're failing assignments, but having it in black and white so that a parent who shows up and says, oh my gosh, my kid didn't know. Well, yes, it's in this policy and here's where it was done and how, I think might help support the athletes, their parents and the teachers.
One of the things, just kind of, you two may remember from going back maybe like 6 or 7 years, one of the components to the RAP program at the time was having him spend time to communicate with the parents of kids that were ineligible. That was just actually one of the tasks, and certainly as time has evolved, the position evolved. So at one point, that was a period of day that somebody was focused on doing just exactly what you're saying. So maybe it's, I don't know what capacity we have, but maybe something just to think about as we're looking forward. But I'll get that information, and if anything else comes to mind, send that my way, and I'll get that together for you.
All right, great.
And we acted on 10.2, right?
We did.
No.
So we're gonna put 10.2 on the table now. Leah, Tammy, all in favor? Motion carries. We're all set with 10.2. 11.1 through 11.27. Motion to put that on the table. Danielle, Ryan, any discussion?
If I could just mention a couple things as I've introduced to you. Mrs. Bayer, our new physics teacher, thank you for joining us today and welcome to Tamarack. Jennifer Holmwood, who Jody spoke about, is coming on board as our third school psychologist. We have a series of things. I just want to point some things here. I hate to keep talking about budget, but I think it's critically important that you're familiar with that. That's the summer scholars that Kelly talked about. But up here is Apex Summer Coordinator. That's our credit recovery. We've also paid for that out of COVID funds. So that's kids that maybe ended up with 64 or something like that. And that is a critical component of what we do, because if we didn't do that and the kids were forced to repeat a course, and again, this is for a very small select number of kids, but if those kids, they would then be behind, and research shows that when you get behind, it just becomes a snowball that gets out of control. So that's been a really effective tool that we've used the last couple of years. Again, that would be something that I would prioritize as part of what we do in budget building. We're fortunate to have it funded that way. And why you need a coordinator, because it's an online type program, you still need that human piece. Hey Ryan, I noticed you haven't logged on in 2 days. Hey Ryan, I noticed you're rushing, because we get all sorts of things. They're going fast, they're going slow. Just that human component, which I think is critically important to just getting those kids, because if they're motivated to do it in the first place, they probably would have. But it has been very successful, and I think that's one of the reasons why our graduation rate has gone up. They're not getting it for free. They have to do the content, they have to achieve, but sometimes they grow up a little bit as the year goes on. They wish they had done it a little different. So that's really good. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
All in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to 12.1 through 12.7. Motion. Dina, Danielle, any discussion?
I just want to mention, obviously I can't say it enough, the PTSA gave us a tremendous amount of money, so I have to be really clear. I want to make that, just let you know how thankful I am. The difference between kids having an opportunity and not. So that's absolutely huge. But I also want to say it was actually Val's idea for us to explore Greenbush Childcare. They have been absolutely wonderful to work with. I am really excited. Technically their contract starts 91, and we've signed a multi-year contract. It won't look terribly different than the setup that we have now, but people often ask, and I just want to make sure the whole board is aware, why don't we just do it ourselves? There's a whole myriad of reasons. One, the liability is high. It's very, very high. Two, it's actually really hard to get people approved to work in a childcare program through civil service. So we were finding ourselves out of compliance with things, and it was quite hard. We're not a preschool. We're an elementary school, a secondary school. So we're not equipped to do those kind of things. This group, Greenbush Childcare, has been with Averill Park and East Greenbush for like decades. And when I called my friends at those two schools, they couldn't gush enough about them. So I am incredibly hopeful. And I know, Val, when you had shared it, you're somebody that you knew had really great experience. Yeah. So
My kids never wanted to come home.
Right, that's right. Your kids went there. So I'm really excited, because for Kelly and I, it's when there's problems with before and after care, it's a problem.
And they will be doing half day and
Yes.
vacations, and they will be
Yes.
offering that. as
Yes.
well.
Yep. And one thing that comes up every once in a while, people will say to us, you're making money off this. We are not making money off this. We do not collect money from them. They offer a service. We allow them to use our space to provide a very important service. We believe that we want to offer that to our families. We know it's an important piece of them being able to live their lives, but there's no give back or anything like that. This is just in kind. So I just wanted to share that.
All in favor?
So, quick question. Donations.
Yes.
What are the limitations, regulations around donations
Oh,
to the school?
actually, Dina wanted to talk about that. a
Yeah,
little bit
that's
today.
Yes, yeah. So I had someone approach me and wants to donate school supplies, and basically just asked if there was any, if we had a list or or we had any program to donate school supplies to students who may need them. And I don't know at what level she wants to or how many, but she said, is there any formal program? So I started thinking, it really is probably a great opportunity for us to help students of the district, and regardless of their need. I know there are a lot of places that are willing to donate. I know a few of the credit unions locally last year obviously they did it for their advertising, did it at their locations, but they may be willing to give some supplies and so forth, or maybe other local businesses. So she and I had a conversation about it, and I said, well, I would bring it to all of you and see. Now, as far as, we talked a little bit via email about how we would administer it, would it be a first come, first serve, that kind of thing. Would someone put a student on the list, or would we have just a day where they could come and, basically, again, first come, first serve, take what was available?
So certainly we want to meet what the company needs. So sometimes the company or the individual say, hey, can you give this to the neediest kid, or can you give this to someone who's parent passed or something very specific. So we try to work within those parameters. I'm kind of looking over at Alicia Devine, because there's some people that will come in and say, hey, my company just donated, and they just bring boxes of stuff, and we just put them out on a table, and we say, take the supplies for your kids. A lot of times when there's very specific supplies, they contact our social worker and school psychologists and our guidance counselors and say, they'll donate it to us, we'll punt to them and say, hey, here's 3 backpacks and some gift cards, who's your most needy kid? So we keep the confidentiality and all those kind of things in place. So I guess long story short, if they want to, we will figure out a way how to do that depending on what it is that they want to do. Sometimes I've had people call and say, hey, will you make an Amazon wish list so we can buy a couple things off that? Perfect, we can do that too. So I think the best way to do it would be to contact me or the building principal, and then if need be, we would put them in contact with the counselor to talk about how they might best meet those kids' needs. Because sometimes one of our biggest needs is oftentimes, I'm gonna kill you, like snacks in the classroom.
Or shoes.
Oh, you're right.
Like supplies sometimes go beyond like the pencils and markers. We actually have an abundance of those and backpacks through generous donations over the years that we've gotten to kids who need them, but we end up having a surplus of those because I think that's what people think of when they think of supplies.
Yep.
But where we really see the needs throughout the years are like clothing, shoes, coats, things like that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
So, so she wants, this particular person, but I'm sure there are probably a number of others who may just not know how to do it. So if there was some,
Maybe what I can do, I'm just
contact
thinking
person.
out loud with you right now, but maybe what I can do is I can work with our building administrators, and we can just come up with a post that's out and people can share it in the community. Here's some of the things that we're looking for. We're in need of.
What about if you put it on the website?
We do that too.
Have a
Yeah.
donation.
I think Kelly's right though, because we do get an overabundance, like we don't need any more compasses. We don't need any more rules. Those are wonderful things and we're so thankful for them. But you're right, a kid needing mittens to go outside and play in the snow.
So that there's, case in point, she was saying, how can I help?
Right.
So that,
Well,
that would
it's-
be
but
great if
that's
we
the thing,
published
you know.
that.
Do you guys want to say that to everybody here?
When a child can't afford a scientific calculator, at the secondary level, and I just want to add too that the work-based learning program is looking to create a supply location. A store, if you will, but it certainly could be a component of that program.
We should definitely be published.
Yeah.
Didn't we used to use the white church for their back to school supply list and the library? I thought they'd done that in the past as well.
I know it's funny how every year is just a little bit different. I know, some years people reach out to me and say, how can I pay off some of these lunch debt? The White Church is wonderful. The backpack program and people that donate to the backpack program has been, I don't want to say hit, that sounds terrible, but so incredibly important for those families around Christmas time, just to make sure families have gifts, turkeys and things like that. But I think we could probably come up with a list of very, very specific school supplies, like a calculator, that even if it's just a donated one your kid just graduated last year that we can collect to help pass on. Headphones are big, you're right. Things have changed, as technology has changed, but I think that would be really helpful. I agree with you. I know there's a lot of people that just tell me what you need, because whenever we put out, we need X, people come
They
through.
just don't
They
know
just
how to
need
do
to,
it.
right. Yep. Yeah, we'll put something together. I'll work on that this week.
Great, thank you.
What do you tell the people to say? I just want to pay off someone's lunch debt.
Well, right now it's not a big thing because we have.
Right, obviously, it's not gonna.
We literally put them in touch with Joy, and Joy can say, hey, the person that's got the biggest lunch debt, whatever, $20, and people will just pay it. It's interesting. That's changed some. It's funny
I
how
was
that's,
just curious what you do with those monetary donations.
that goes right through food service. Yeah, everything else would show up as a donation. Some people just drop it off and they don't need it to come through as a donation, but some people, just, they need a receipt for it.
Yeah.
So all in favor? Motion carries, and that brings us to public comment.
Laura,
I'm mom. And, sorry, someone there rapping for me. And
I want to share a little bit about this incredible, talented, rising 11th grader who you probably didn't know prior to this today existed. I'm Laura, and this is my daughter, Olivia, Leslie Rose. And Olivia is in your QuestStar program at Hudson Valley Community College for, she's taking clean energy management degree track. Olivia is a straight A student. She is class president. She was awarded the only award of the entire school for Spirit Award for the student most dedicated to the school and its values. I also want to share with you a policy that is presently devastating our life. The program is wonderful, and you send many, many students, actually not that many students there, you're best and brightest, I would say. And in that program, the children are in college. In fact, next year, as a rising 11th grader, Olivia's will have an entire college slate, graduating with a degree. So thank you for this program. It is truly a wonderful thing, and the other students in it have, when I was PTSA president last year, this year there are 2 of those students who got full scholarships to colleges, and the accolades and the work that is being done is incredible. The last thing I'll share about Olivia is not only academically does she have straight A's and the things I told you, but on the side, she is a professional photographer and just sold her first piece at her 3rd professional art gallery, the public display. She has also won national awards for her video documentaries on environmental justice, according to her principal. There is no doubt that she will continue to flourish and that she is an asset to her school community, and one day I trust that will be a wonderful contributor to help solve our society's problems. We're here because this is Olivia, and as I said, I don't think you knew she existed. It's because you could imagine the shock that went through our bodies when just 2 weeks ago, Dr. Maloney had sent us an email stating that a policy by the board was made, and effectively my child has been kicked out of school. Thankfully, Dr. Maloney, through some email conversations, we figured out a solution. To give you perspective, at the moment we are considered non-residents. That's to change, but at the moment, and that's fine. We are paying the tuition completely, and so financially, the school is not bothered by this scenario. In fact, benefits, because if we were at the moment residents, the school would be footing the entire $13,500 bill. But at the moment, I am. And so my request today, as Dr. Maloney has passed this at the moment, because when the board passed this bill, you didn't know not only that Olivia existed, but that QuestStar didn't exist on your last provision in 2019. School didn't even exist. So she is a fish caught in your net. I'm asking you, it's one sentence in a policy, number 9, that says, the district is able to offer such placement without incurring any additional cost. That one sentence kicked the class president out of her school. Mind you, there is absolutely no possible option for a college student to go anywhere else. She can't go back into high school. She can't go forward into college. There is, because she's already, this will be her set. She's already 2 years into a college program. There is no other option. So again, thankfully, thank you, Dr. Maloney, for figuring out a solution. The reason I'm bringing it to the board again is because I believe and I trust that nobody who was at this meeting knew, that this one sentence would affect one human being in your entire school district. I can't imagine that was possible, and I know that the school didn't even exist when it was first written, first in 2019, then 2017, then 2019, it was revised. I don't even believe that when it was passed in March, any of you knew she would be caught in the rope. So that's why I'm teaching my daughter right now and myself, because the last time that I have felt so much pain is when my father passed. But when I got an email that hurt my child. So I know you understand. I can see your faces, and I know this was a mistake. I know it wasn't done intentionally, and I know you didn't know that this person, this beautiful person, my daughter, was caught on this one sentence. So what I'm asking you to do is to go back on this policy, remove sentence on number 9, so that right now your attorneys are involved. My concern is that they are earning their keep or trying to earn their keep by finding ways to make this more complicated, because again, you never thought of the school, you never thought of her, and there is no financial loss to the school, because as a non-resident at the moment, I am the one putting the bill. So that is my request, and thank you, Dr. Maloney. I know you have a lot you're working on, but I wanted you to put a face to the name to see there's people behind this, and this child deserves to be part of this program. And I know you're working to do that, but once it gets into attorneys' hands, I realize that there's other things coming up. And so I ask of you, as I emailed today, to just give us the tuition. Let me pay the bill. $13,500. That's it. No additional fees, no whatever the attorneys are trying to come up with. Let us figure this out. And as said, we are actually working to become residents. So that is what I wanted to share with you, and thank you for allowing us to be here, and so that you see there is a person behind this sentence, and we need your help.
Thank you for your comments. That's it. Okay, so I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matter. All in favor? Motion carried. I'll let Danielle then. All right, thank you all for coming.
The funniest things.